get started now, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. You guys are aware with, generally speaking, my teaching style. Generally speaking, we'll like to take it a little bit slower pace, take our time, learn it properly. Inshallah, have some opportunities to connect and to joke and to laugh. Today, we're not going to do that. Today, we're going to jump right into the meat and potatoes. We have 1 hour to cover the fiqh of Sawm and the fiqh of Zakat. This is something that at a traditional madrasa will take, on average, like 6 months. So trying to do it in 1 hour is going to be very challenging. So if you guys pay attention, inshallah, and if anyone has any questions, raise your hand. We cool? Cool beans? Bismillah. Awesome. So Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. We start, inshallah, with Kitab al-Sawm. We start with Kitab al-Sawm. What is Sawm? Sawm is fasting. Right? Sawm is fasting. We spoke about this last night, that lughatan, from a literal perspective, what does Sawm mean? A Sawm huwa al-imsak. It is to stop yourself from doing something. So from a literal perspective, Sawm means to stop something. From an istilahi perspective, from a technical perspective, Sawm is to stop yourself from eating, drinking, and intimacy from Fajr until Maghrib. This is Sawm istilahan. Now, when it comes to the fiqh of Sawm, there are a few important things to discuss. Number one is niyyah. As the Prophet Mohamed sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Right? That actions are based upon their intentions. So getting the niyyah right for your fasting is important. Okay? Number two is going to be, and the thing that we'll probably spend the most time on, will be the things that break your fast. Amma sifatu Sawm, in regards to the sifa, the description of fasting, we won't spend too much time on this. I feel like you guys all know that you're not supposed to eat or be intimate from Fajr till Maghrib. It's not something we have to talk about, right? So we'll talk more about breaking the fast. What are some of those things that break the fast? And I think that's what we'll focus most of our time on today. So niyyah and breaking the fast, those are the big things, okay? In regards to the niyyah, I should have prepared something for you guys to see here. But you guys are going to follow along with my brain, my funky brain. You're going to follow along, inshallah. In regards to the niyyah, you have to understand that firstly, there are two types of fasting. Type number one is wajib, mandatory. A mandatory type of fast. Type number two is going to be nafil, optional fasting. You guys with me so far? So we have Sawm, we have fasting, and then fasting breaks into two parts. Wajib and nafil, mandatory, optional. ثم الواجب, and then the wajib then breaks into two more parts. So wajib, mandatory, then mandatory breaks into two more parts. The mandatory يتعلق بزمان, mandatory that is connected to a time. What's an example of this? Ramadan. It's connected to a time. Ramadan starts and Ramadan ends. There is a specific time. So there is mandatory fast, then there's mandatory fast connected to a time. Then the second type of mandatory is يثبت في ذمته. What is in your dhimma, it is mandatory that you have to do this fast, but it's not connected to a time. What's an example of this? Qada'u Ramadan, making up the fast of Ramadan. Like if you missed a fast in Ramadan, you have your whole life to make it up. Another example of this is nadhr. You take an oath. If someone was to say, if Abdullah said, I swear by Allah I will fast, then Abdullah has to fast. So that fast is mandatory, but it's not connected to a time. You guys with me? So we have essentially three types of fast. Okay? There's wajib in a time, wajib open, and then nafil. Nafil is just optional. In regards to the niyyah, we'll start with the wajib. The first type of wajib that is connected to a time, You can make the niyyah the night before, or you should make the niyyah the night before, but in case you forget, you can make the niyyah up until dhuhr of that day. So, if it's a wajib that is connected to a time, the only example of this is Ramadan. Ramadan, or technically another for an appointed time, but whatever. Ramadan is the main example. For Ramadan, you have to make the niyyah either the night before or the same day up until dhuhr. Some scholars say that you can make the niyyah for the whole month in the beginning of the month. If you take this opinion, fine, no problem. What does the niyyah look like? It's not necessarily like you have to sit down before you go to sleep and say, I intend to fast tomorrow. نَوَيْتُ الصَّوْمِ غَدًا مِنَ الْفَجْرِ. No, you don't got to do that. Okay? You just have to know, I'm fasting tomorrow. If you know it, that's the niyyah. The niyyah is not vocalized, it's something that is understood. Right? So you don't have to say anything. You just know, tomorrow I'm fasting, khalas, your niyyah is done. Your niyyah is done. Right? But why this is important is the second type of fast. The second type of wajib fast. Remember we said a sawm, fasting, then wajib, and broken into two parts. Wajib in a time, and wajib that's open-ended, right? That's not connected to a time. Wajib that is not connected to a time, the niyyah has to be made the night before. Why? Because you have to make the niyyah before you start the action. You have to specify that this is my mandatory make-up fast. You have to specify what you're doing. You can't just start it by accident. You can't just start it by accident. So when you're making up fasts of Ramadan, maybe you're sick, maybe you're traveling, maybe hayd, maybe whatever it might be, right? Then those days that you're making up, you have to have the niyyah the night before. You can't just wake up the next day, because you guys know there's a very famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where the Prophet ﷺ goes to his wife, Aisha radiallahu anha, and he asks her, is there any food in the house? And she says, no, we have no food. And he says what? No problem, I'll just fast. So that brings us now to the nafil fast. For nafil fast, you have the option to make the niyyah the night before or the same day until dhuhr. Why? Because of that hadith. So nafil, the optional fast, the rulings are a little bit more loose, a little bit easier going. For the wajib that's connected to a time, also a little bit more loose, a little bit easy going. Why? Because it's connected to a time. It's connected to a time, right? So it's not like you could be doing anything else. So when you wake up and you're fasting in Ramadan, can you do another fast in Ramadan? Can you fast like a fast of like nafil in the month of Ramadan? Can you do that? No. So that's why you can make the niyyah up until dhuhr if you needed to. If you needed to. The only time that this would happen, making the niyyah up until dhuhr in Ramadan, the only time it would happen is if it's the first night or the last night. Does that make sense? If it's the first day of Ramadan and you didn't realize Ramadan started and someone told you, hey, by the way, today's the first day of Ramadan and dhuhr time has not come yet, well, you could start your fast, no problem. No problem, right? But if dhuhr time has passed, you got to make up that day. You got to make up that first day. The only second potential that this could happen is the last day. Is the last day. And that is that, for example, you assumed it was the day of Eid, and so you didn't start fasting, you didn't make the niyyah, you thought, oh, tomorrow is Eid, so you didn't make the niyyah that I'm going to fast tomorrow. You woke up, you're just chilling, you call your friends, hey, what Eid Salah are you going to? And they're like, Eid is tomorrow. And then you're like, oh, okay, no problem. So you make the niyyah, I'm going to start fasting then. As long as before dhuhr, no problem. All the other days of Ramadan, you know before you go to sleep that the next day you're fasting. Fahimtum, you guys see? So this is the whole niyyah discussion, an important discussion to have. It's not important every day of Ramadan. Really, it's mostly important the first day and the last day. And also, it's much more important for the days you have to make up. That's the reason we have this discussion. One of the big reasons we have this discussion is the niyyah is important regarding the days you have to make up. You have to have the intention the night before. Khalas, this is the niyyah. In regards to now the things that break your fast, there are 4 categories. There are 4 categories. There are 4 ways you can break your fast. Category number 1 is nasi. Nasi, to forget. Category number 2, khata. Khata, an accident. Category number 3 is al-mukrih, someone who is forced. And category number 4 is amdan, purposefully. So category number 1, again, you guys have great memory, no? Nobody taking notes, nothing? MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Y'all gonna remember all of this, huh? 4 categories for breaking the fast. Category number 1 was nasi, forgetting. Right? Nasyan, you forget. Category number 2 is khata, an accident. Category number 3, mukrih. Mukrih. Mukrih is forced. Forced. Category number 4 is amdan, purposefully. So you can break your fast. These are the 4 scenarios. In regards to breaking your fast, nasyan, you forget. You forget. Now notice there's a difference between forgetting and an accident. I'll explain it in just a moment, okay? Right, actually I'll explain it right now. When you forget, this is you didn't know, you forgot you were fasting, so you ate. You forgot you were fasting, so you ate. This is forgetting. An accident is you knew you were fasting, you knew you were supposed to be fasting, and you accidentally ate. Maybe you ate too late, maybe you accidentally ate too early. So let's say, for example, an example of an accident is you ate some food before the adhan of Maghrib. Fahimtum? That's an accident. You didn't forget you were fasting. You just thought the adhan had called, but it didn't actually call. Or you accidentally ate after the adhan of Fajr. You knew you were fasting, but you accidentally ate because you didn't realize that the adhan for Fajr had already called. Forgetting is different. Forgetting is you forgot you were fasting. You know, like forgetting is you're walking down the hallway at school or at work and you just bend over and take a sip from the water fountain. Like it's just force of habit. You're like, oh, I forgot I was fasting. An example of drinking water by accident, not forgetting, is you drink water in the shower by accident. So let's say you're fasting, you hop in the shower, you take the shower, and you accidentally swallow some water. You accidentally swallow some water. Why that would happen, I don't know, but that's, close your mouth, that's nasty. Or brushing teeth, that's a much better example, thank you. Thank you. You're brushing your teeth, and you're fasting, and you're brushing your teeth, and you accidentally swallow. So do you guys see the difference between accident and forgetting? Forgetting is you forgot you were fasting. Accident is you know you're fasting, but you just made a mistake. Question? We'll take specific questions later. We'll take specific questions later. Okay, if you have a question about toothpaste, we'll leave that to the end. Let's get through the fiqh. Hold your question on toothpaste, inshallah. Just spit it out, my guy. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm joking, Habibi. I'm joking. I got you. It's a good question. Okay, so, type number 1 of breaking your fast, nasi, forgetting. Type number 2, khata, accident. Type number 3, mukrih, forced. Type number 4, amdan, on purpose. In regards to nasi. So, okay, before we get to there. When you break your fast, and you're supposed to be fasting, yani when you eat or drink something, right? Or you're intimate and you're supposed to be fasting, right? There are three possibilities. There are three possibilities. Possibility number one, you continue fasting, nothing happens. Possibility number one, you continue fasting, nothing happens. Possibility number two, you have qada. Qada means you have to make up the day, right? Qaza. We use the same word for salah, right? Same word. Qada, you have to make up that day. Possibility number three, you have kafara. Kafara is now a penalty. What's the penalty for breaking a fast while fasting? It's to free one slave, and if you cannot free a slave, then to fast 60 days consecutively without stopping. Day after day, day after day for 60 days, right? Very, very difficult. Very, very difficult, okay? So again, there are 4 ways to break your fast. Not break your fast. There are 4 things that could happen. We'll talk about breaking your fast, not breaking your fast in a second. Nasi, you forget. Khata, accident. Mukrih, forced. Amdan, on purpose. In these 4 ways, there are 3 possible repercussions. Repercussion number 1, nothing. No repercussion. That's the first possibility. Nothing happens, just continue fasting, act like it didn't happen. Repercussion number 2, you have to make up that day. Qada. Repercussion number 3, penalty, kafara. Everyone with me? Okay. In regards to nasi, this was our first one. There is no repercussion. There is no qada, there is no kafara. No repercussion. So if you forget your fasting, you accidentally drink something or eat something, there's no makeup, there's no penalty, there's nothing. It's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Continue on in your day. Again, what was nasi? Nasi is you forgot you were fasting. You're walking down the hallway, you see the water fountain, you bend down, take a sip, or you get into your car. This has definitely not happened to me. You get into your car and there's like a bottle of Gatorade there and you're like, oh, Gatorade. And you take a sip and you're like, oh my God, I'm fasting. And you put it up, right? I know that has definitely not happened to anyone here, and it definitely has not happened to me before. Specifically not with blue Gatorade, of course, the best Gatorade, light blue, because dark blue is weird. The light blue glacier freeze Gatorade, mashallah, tabarakallah. The red is better, you're wrong, that's okay. You're entitled to your opinion, even if it's wrong, but it's okay. For nasi, again, we had 3 possible repercussions. Repercussion number 1, you go on your day, act like it didn't happen. Repercussion number 2, you gotta make up the day, qada. Repercussion number 3, kafara, penalty. For nasi, no repercussion. You go about your day, act like it didn't happen. So if you're walking down the hallway, you see the water fountain, you forgot you were fasting, you bend over, you take a sip, you remember you're fasting, oh my God, you spit out whatever's in your mouth, go on in your day, khalas, no problem. Khata. This is the one that most people don't know. Khata, the repercussion is qada. You have to make up that day, you broke your fast. You still continue fasting that day, but you have to make it up. There is no kafara, there is no penalty, but you have to make up that day. If you break your fast by accident, you have to make up that day. There is qada. So, if you're sitting down and you're smelling the pakora, you're smelling that samosa, and you thought you heard the adhan, you hear your little sister screaming in the other room and you're like, Allahu Akbar, and you pick up a samosa and you take a bite. This is what we call khata. This is what we call khata. So that day, you have to make up that day. You have to make up that day. Another very famous, prominent example, the misunderstanding of the hadith of Bilal, where the Prophet Mohamed sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, if you hear the adhan of Bilal, continue eating or swallow whatever is in your mouth. This is the most commonly misunderstood hadith. Why? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was not talking about the adhan of Fajr. Till today, if you go to almost any Muslim country in the Arab world, or even not in the Arab world, whether that Mecca, Medina, whether that be Morocco, or other countries, right? I know these three because these are the places that I'm in. Before Fajr, they will call the adhan for the last third of the night. You'll hear it, and you wake up, you're like, oh my God, it's Fajr time. And then you run to the masjid, and there's like no one there. And you're like, what happened? And then like 20 minutes later, you hear the adhan again. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that if you're eating something, and you hear the adhan of Bilal, continue and swallow what's in your mouth, was about that first adhan. Because that was something special that Bilal did himself. This was not a command from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Who knows another example of something that Bilal did himself that became instituted as part of the deen? No, not how to make it. I'll give you a hint. It's connected to the adhan as well. What was that? I didn't hear what you said. But I'll tell you what it is. It's as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm. You know, in the Fajr Salah, in the Fajr adhan, we say as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm. Hayya ala al-falah, hayya ala al-falah. And we say, what? As-salatu khayrun min an-nawm. This is not from the hadith of Prophet. This is not from the dream of that Sahabi, right? Because the adhan came from a dream of a Sahabi. He told the Prophet, and we'll talk about that in Sirah class, don't worry about it, right? As-salatu khayrun min an-nawm is an addition by Bilal. Because one time he was giving the adhan in the masjid, and he saw people sleeping. He didn't see anyone coming. He saw the Prophet ﷺ kind of laid back too. And he said, what? As-salatu khayrun min an-nawm. And the Prophet ﷺ woke up and he was like, what did you say? Right? Obviously afterwards, the Prophet ﷺ, he told him what? That's good, keep that in. So the Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu, also another thing that he did is that he would call the adhan before Fajr time to kind of wake people up. Because that was their alarm clock. So he would call the adhan, let people know Fajr's coming close, then call the adhan the second time for the real Fajr. So that hadith is a very commonly misunderstood hadith. That you're sitting there drinking water, and like you hear the adhan, and you're like, oh, I heard the hadith say one time that like you're allowed to finish drinking whatever's in your hand, and you're like holding a bunch of stuff in your hand, and you drink this whole cup of water, and like swallow 4 dates afterwards, and it's like, that is khata. That is khata, that breaks your fast. You have now broken your fast, you have to make up that day. You have to make up that day, right? Or if you wake up and you assumed, oh man, I still have like 4 minutes for suhoor. 4 minutes for suhoor happens to the best of us, right? And you run down, you go downstairs, and you're just like drinking milk, and you're eating dates, you're like swallowing oatmeal, and your brother kind of looks at you like, bro, adhan called like 5 minutes ago. Khata, you have to make up that day. You see, because that's not nasi. You didn't forget you were fasting. You accidentally ate during the time of fasting. This is why, if you ever noticed, any of the other old people in here like me, if you ever remember in the old prayer timetables that we used to print and put on our refrigerators, there used to be, before Fajr time, it used to say imsak. You guys remember that? Imsak time? And then there always used to be like weird debates in the community. What is this imsak? Like, imsak is the time that it was recommended by scholars. What does imsak mean? Stop eating. It was usually 10 to 20 minutes before Fajr where the scholars recommended, now you should stop eating. That way, in case there's anything in your mouth, you can brush your teeth. You can, sometimes you have a little something stuck in your tooth. You can get it out, you can floss, you can swallow, you do whatever you want. And you're not sitting there worried, is there something or did I eat something during my fast? Why? Because if you eat something, if Fajr comes in at 6:29, the moment the clock hits 6:29, one swallow of water by accident will break your fast. And you have to make up that day. But remember, this is khata, right? So we said nasi, no penalty. Khata, an accident, you accidentally swallow water while you're brushing your teeth. You accidentally swallow water while you're swimming in the pool. You accidentally drink some water, some milk, some ravza, before the adhan of Maghrib calls. You accident, this is now qada. Qada. No kafara. No kafara for the accident. No kafara for the accident, just qada. The third type was mukrih. The mukrih, you have two different opinions. The Hanafi opinion is that it does not break your fast. The Shafi'i opinion is that it does break your fast. Wallahu ta'ala alam as-sawab. Inshallah, none of us will ever be put in that position where someone puts a gun to our head and says, you better break your fast, Muslim, right? Hopefully that will never happen, inshallah. But if it does happen, according to the Hanafi scholars, it does not break your fast. No penalty, no qada, no kafara, just go on your day. The fourth was amdan. Amdan was what? Purposefully. If you break your fast purposefully, there is qada plus kafara. There's the qada plus the kafara. You have to make up that day and you have to pay the penalty. And what is the kafara? What is the penalty for breaking your fast intentionally in the month of Ramadan? 60 days fasting consecutively. For the love of all that is holy, do not break your fast purposefully. Because if it was hard to fast 30 days, it's going to be twice as hard to fast 60 days. Right? And consecutively, you can't stop for a day. Just back to back, 60 days. Yeah. So this is the breaking of the fast. The last thing to discuss is then now what are the things that do break the fast? In regards to intimacy, I'm going to say it in Arabic and I'm going to allude to it so that the adults can understand. It is iltiqa'u sakinain. Iltiqa'u sakinain meaning the two parts meet. There does not have to be entering. There does not have to be I'm trying to think of a PG way to say this. There doesn't have to be entering. There doesn't have to be completion. Okay? It doesn't have to complete. It doesn't have to even enter. As long as the two touch, done. Done. And this is either side of the female body. One of the sides is haram anyways. But even though it's haram, if it touches the other private part, khalas, you're done. Okay? And then when it comes to eating or drinking, it is anything that will go down your throat. So if it passes down your throat, fast broken. If it doesn't pass down your throat, it will not break your fast. This is why some of the scholars mention, for example, if a woman is in an abusive relationship and she is worried that if the food doesn't taste good, there will be a problem in the family, she's allowed to what? Put the food on her tongue to taste it and then spit it out. Because technically, tasting is not eating. And so tasting won't break your fast. Now if you put it on your tongue and swallow it, khalas, you just broke your fast. But if you put it on your tongue and spit it out, technically doesn't break your fast. It is makruh. But in the situation where a woman is in an abusive relationship and she is worried for her safety, then she's allowed to. That's the root of that. Why? Because again, what is the limit of breaking your fast? Something going down your throat and into your stomach. Something going down your throat. So what's an example of something that will not break your fast, that you might assume should? Yeah? Putting water in your mouth? That's not the example I was going to give, but yeah. I was going to give the example of an IV. If you know anything about IVs, you know they'll give you nutrition, right? You can technically survive off of an IV, but an IV will not break your fast. Why? Because it doesn't go down your throat and it doesn't enter your stomach. It just enters your bloodstream. Fahimtum? That's basically it. In regards to like eye drops, ear drops, nose stuff, asthma medication, eye drops, according to the majority of scholars, will not break your fast. Because the likelihood of it going down to your throat is little. It's possible, but it's little. Nose stuff, very possible to break your fast. And most likely will break your fast. Why? You ever done those nose sprays? What happens? You taste it in the back of your throat, broke your fast. Ear stuff, not going to break your fast. Okay? An example of something that will break your fast, asthma medication. Asthma medication. Why? Because it goes down the throat. It goes down the throat. فخلاص. Even though technically it's supposed to go to your lungs, there is a possibility and I wouldn't even say a possibility, a probability that some of it will enter your stomach. Only if you are an extreme professional at taking like asthma medication and you know to start breathing first and then swallow and then this and that, will it enter into just your lungs? But even then it goes down your throat, so the fast is broken. The fast is broken. What about insulin? How do you take insulin? You inject it, right? So where does it go? Into your bloodstream. So will it break your fast? No. Remember, through here, down here. That's what's going to break your fast. Or, technically speaking, through the other side and into your stomach, also break your fast. Question? So I'll take, what time is it? 7:15? Oh, 7:16, we don't got time. Okay, we got to jump to Zakat. I was going to take some questions. I'll take 2 questions on this side, 2 questions on that side. Bismillah. So then that person will be excused from fasting. Like if someone has to take asthma medication, actually thank you, you reminded me we needed to speak about this. What about if someone can't fast? What do? Then they have to give the fidya. They pay for those days, right? And the fidya is between $7 to $10. My advice is to make it $10. $10 per day, right? So if someone is an elderly person or their health is preventing them from fasting, maybe someone has diabetes and they have to eat sugar, this, that, or the other, whatever it might be, then in these situations, those people are excused from fasting, they just pay the fidya. In the situation where someone is asthmatic, right? And generally speaking, they can fast, but they have an asthma attack and they are forced to take the medication. Then there's qada, you just make it up. It's no different than someone who is like, walking down their day regularly. They swallow their saliva, they choke on it, they keep choking. They realize they need to drink some water or else they'll die. Then they drink some water, no problem. There's no sin, but you broke your fast. You got to make up that day. That's it, right? Same thing as like a low blood pressure. Someone has low blood pressure, or high blood pressure, or someone is a diabetic, and the doctor says you're allowed to fast, no problem. But they're fasting, and then they realize they start to get lightheaded, and they're starting to go in and out of consciousness, and they need some sugar right away. Okay, eat some sugar. You got to make up that day. No problem, no sin, but you still got to make it up. Is that good? Okay, we'll take one more question. Dr. Maniza, you can text me. You can text me, inshallah. I'll take the question right here. Yeah, right here. The sister with the white hijab. If you like vomit, well, you should stop liking vomit. I'm joking. I'm teasing you. If you vomit more than a mouthful, it will break your fast. If it's less than a mouthful, it will not break your fast. Cool? Okay, those are the two questions on this side. Go ahead. Ask your doctor if you can take it before or after your fast. But hypothetically, someone has some medical reason that they have to take a supplement, and it has to be during the time of fasting. Let's say there's a specific pill that they have to take 3 times a day, for example, and there's no way to avoid it, then that person is excused from fasting. They'll have to pay the fidya, $10 per day they miss. So for that person, it'll be $300 for the month of Ramadan. You have to pay it to the needy, and that will alleviate the fard. I can talk to you any day. Let me get a question from someone who I won't see. Yes. No, you have to fast 60 days. Only if someone doesn't have the ability to fast 60 days can we then go to Ta'am al-Masakin. So they're in order of do this. If you can't do this, then go this. And if you can't do this, then do this. And when we say can't, we mean physically unable. Right? So let's say someone needs to pay kafara, but they couldn't fast to begin with. For whatever, because there's other penalties, like kafara is the penalty for, right? There's other, and it's not just breaking your fast, other things, right? So then they obviously can't fast, so then they're going to have to feed the needy, right? So the first option is actually freeing a slave. So technically we're supposed to free a slave, but you can't free a slave because there's no slaves. So then you just go immediately to number 2, which is fasting 60 days. If your health doesn't allow you to fast 60 days, then you can jump to feeding the needy. Very good question. Okay, so we'll go to zakat. Okay, in regards to zakah, we're not going to have enough time for this, but I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. Can we do it after Isha? No, sorry. Because people got to start preparing for Ramadan and things like that, and we said Maghrib to Isha, so it's Maghrib to Isha. What is zakah? Zakah is a mandatory charity that we all have to give. We all know what zakah is. Who has to give zakah? There are 5 prerequisites that someone has to have in order to give zakah. Number 1, they have to be a free person. They can't be a slave. Number 2, Muslim. Number 3, age of puberty. Number 4, they have to be sane. They cannot be insane. And number 5, obviously the most important one for us, they have to own nisab. Nisab is the line. Above that line, you're rich. Below that line, you're not rich, you're poor. This is the line. Not poor, I don't like the word poor because poor is derogatory in our discourse, okay? But nisab is the line. If you are above nisab, you give zakah. If you are below nisab, you can receive zakah. فهمتم? What is nisab? Nisab is the equivalent to 3 ounces of gold. 3 ounces of gold. So nisab will change year after year after year. As it stands now, nisab is just about $5,500 or something like that. Just about 5,500. So if you have more than that in liquid assets, in cash or in inventory, then you have to pay zakat on that cash/inventory. What you do not pay zakat on are things you use and property. Okay? So your car, your house, you don't pay zakat on them. If it's an investment house, for example, you bought a property and you're using it to sell, to rent. If it's a rental investment property, you still don't pay zakat because you don't pay zakat on land. If it is a house that you're planning on selling, then you pay zakat on it because now it's inventory. It's something, it's an asset, you're buying and selling it. Difference, okay? The house that you live in, you do not pay zakat on. Your car, you don't pay zakat on. Your clothes, you don't pay zakat on. The jewelry that you wear regularly, you do not pay zakat on. That wedding jewelry that you have that's been sitting in a closet for 25 years, waiting for your daughter to eventually get married one day, you pay zakat on that. You pay zakat on that, okay? So, again, nisab is the equivalent to what? 3 ounces of gold. 3 ounces of gold. If you have more than that, the value of more than that, in cash or in inventory, you pay zakat on that cash/inventory. How do you calculate it? You calculate the value of it. Cash is easy, it's just cash, right? And the inventory, you calculate the wholesale price of it. The wholesale price of it. What you bought it for, not what you plan to sell it for, right? So let's say, for example, someone has an inventory of, I don't know, batteries. They got a whole bunch, they have a battery shop, right? Well, they'll pay zakat on the value of the wholesale batteries that they paid for. Doesn't matter. Okay, so what's really important about this, the opinion that I take, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, included in the things that you have to pay zakah on is your 401k, is your retirement accounts. Your Roth IRAs, your simple IRAs, your 401ks, all of it. All your investment accounts, your Robinhood investments, all of it, you pay zakah. Why? Because this is cash that you have access to. But you're going to tell me, Imam, I don't have access to it. It's in my savings. I haven't retired yet. You mean to tell me that if you lost your job and you had no money in your checking account, that you could not reach into that 401k and pull money out? You couldn't do that. Absolutely you could. Who are you lying to? You have access to it. You choose to not touch it so that it continues to grow. So how do you pay zakat on your 401k or whatever other investment account that you have? You calculate, you subtract all the fees that you would incur for pulling it out early. You would subtract the taxes that you would have to pay for pulling it out early. And what is left is what is yours. You have access to that. You're choosing to not touch it so that you can invest it. But that's what you're choosing to do with your money. So you have to pay zakah on that. So if there is $50,000 in your 401k and if you were to pull it out today, you would have a 40% penalty, and this, taxes would be another this and this, that, and the other, and what you're left with is $25,000. That's what you would be left with if you pulled out your 401k today. Well, then you pay zakah on that $25,000. Okay, assuming that number is above nisab. If it's below nisab, then you don't qualify for zakah, right? Yes. No. So the brother is asking that if you have properties that you own that you're not necessarily planning on selling or anything like that, you just bought property, you're just kind of sitting there or whatever, do you pay zakat on that? No. Because you don't pay zakat on that land that you own. The only reason you're paying zakat on houses that you're flipping is because they're inventory now. If someone's like a real estate mogul and they've got like 30 houses and they're a multi-millionaire, it's not going to get them out of paying zakat. Because none of those houses you own. Those are things you're just trading. They're assets that you're trading. Right? So you're not buying it to use it, you're buying it to sell it. Right? So that would be something that you own, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Now what is the one thing that can disqualify someone from giving zakat is debt. If you are in debt, then you also subtract the debt from your assets. So let's say, for example, you look at your assets, you say, in my checking account, I have $5,000. In my saving account, I have $10,000. In my 401k, after subtracting all of the penalties and this and another, I have another $10,000. So 10 and 10, there's your 20, and then your 5 here, I have $25,000 total. But I have a $25,000 loan that I'm paying off tomorrow. Well, then technically you don't pay zakat on that money, because you subtract the debt. You subtract the debt. Or let's say you have a $5,000 debt. So then you're going to subtract the debt from your assets. You have $5,000 in debt. So you're going to subtract that from the $25,000 in your assets. So how much are you going to pay zakat on now? $20,000. Not on the whole $25,000. Okay? However, the scholars make a distinction between long-term debt and short-term debt. This is a modern addition to fiqh. The reason for this is because if anyone and everyone in debt did not pay zakah, then no one would be paying zakah, because we live in a world where people are always drowning in debt. You dream of the day your house will be paid off. So what? No one's going to pay zakah until they're 70 years old. Then who's going to take care of the needy people? Who's going to take care of the orphans? Where are we going to get the money for this? Right? So the scholars make a distinction now between long-term debt and short-term debt. Short-term debt is the debt that you will pay off between 1 and 3 years. That debt, you can subtract the full amount. The debt that you plan to pay off in 1 to 3 years, you can subtract the full amount from your assets. Anything that is more than 3 years debt, then you can only subtract the next month's payment. So let's say, for example, you just bought a car and you put the car on a credit card, and your credit card has 18 months, 0 interest. And you're planning on paying it off over those 18 months. You can subtract the whole amount from your assets. Why? Because it's a short-term debt. So this year, maybe you won't pay zakah. Next year, you probably will. But let's say, for example, your mortgage. You got a 15, 30-year mortgage. You cannot subtract your mortgage from your assets. You can only subtract the next month's payments. So $2,000, $3,000, $10,000, depending on how absolutely ginormous and unnecessary your house is. Right? Some of you guys are looking at me like, $10,000, that's nothing. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. It's so much. You only have 600. Ya salam. Okay, so this is zakat in a nutshell. Adhan is in 45 seconds. We'll take 2 questions on the brother's side, 2 questions on the sister's side, and we'll wrap up. Yes? Very good question. Very good question. This doesn't just apply to women, it's to anyone. Let's say someone is not working and they have money left over, whatever. Who pays the zakah is the person the money belongs to. However, someone can pay on your behalf if they choose. So let's say, for example, there's a sister, she used to work, and while she was working, she put money away into a 401k. It's sitting there, it's just growing and investing, and you have $100,000 sitting in there. It's your money, it's in your name. Technically, you owe zakah on that. So if the zakah is not paid, you get the sin. But if your husband chooses to pay it for you, thank your husband. Make him biryani, inshallah. But anyone can pay your zakah for you. Zakah is a monetary debt to Allah. It's different from salah. No one can pray your salah. Zakah, someone can do your zakah. This is why, technically speaking, someone can do your hajj for you too. Because hajj is not only of spiritual worship, but it's also a monetary worship, so someone can do it on your behalf. So if someone, let's say, had the money, but they got sick and they couldn't go, they can pay someone else to do it for them. Right? Okay, we'll take one more on the sister side. Oh, doubling up, mashallah, bismillah, go ahead. You calculate based off of the price of that day. That day. So you're not going to say, so let's say, for example, today, gold was worth, $2,000 per ounce. And so $6,000 would be nisab. So you pay your zakah. Based off of that, you realize I'm above nisab. Tomorrow, there's a market crash. The economy, something bad happens, and the price of gold skyrockets to, $10,000 per ounce. I don't know, I'm giving you a crazy example. Then nisab would be what? $30,000. If you waited one day, you wouldn't have to pay zakat. You pay based off of the reality of that day. That's it. Right? Very good. All right, on the brother side, you guys can talk to me at any time. You're going to talk to me after salah. Come to me after salah. Come see me after salah. Any adults have zakah questions? None. You guys don't qualify for zakah. I can tell you that right now. Okay. No, you're barely free, and you're definitely not past the age of puberty. Okay. Adults, men, adults, 2 questions we got. Bismillah. No questions on zakah? MashaAllah. Khalas. I'll take 2 more questions then randomly about anything. Oh, you had your toothpaste question. The residue, like the minty flavor, that will not break your fast. So the brother asked a question, if, let's say you brush your teeth and you have that minty aftertaste in your mouth and you spit it out like 2-3 times, but you still have that like refreshing, Colgate, right? Like, that will not break your fast. That will not break your fast. Very good. Last final question, bismillah. As long as it's before Fajr, it's fine. The brother asked for the makeup fast for qada. We said you had to make the niyyah before, right? Before the fast starts. So as long as it's before suhoor, you're fine. But yeah. You do not have to fast, no. Because you have to make that up anyways. Because if you make the niyyah to do something, you don't have to follow through with it. You don't have to follow through. But if you start an action and you don't finish it, you have to make it up. Yeah, very good. Yes, bismillah. We'll make an exception for you, please. It's haram. All right. Salat al-Isha. No, I'm joking. Bismillah. Hurry up. Very, very good question. You have to make up that day. Ahsanti. Very good question. Bila shak, absolutely. 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 You'll be rewarded for everything. Allah is Rahman Rahim. خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.